Alright, welcome back to the channel, everybody. We are not in the layout room today. Instead, we are in the air above beautiful Himrod, New York, and we've got a special video planned for you. I am going to take you through my step-by-step process for creating realistic photo backdrops for your model railroad, and we'll dive into it right now. So obviously this is not an easy process, this is not a cheap process, but if you got the tools necessary to do this, I highly recommend it. I am using a DJI Mavic 2 Pro drone. It's a really nice drone, a couple of years old now, so you might be able to find one cheap if you're looking for that, but really any drone with some decent stabilization will do for you in that aspect. Just want one that's got a halfway decent camera on it, and you'll be in business as far as the camera side of things is concerned. Other than that, you will also need Adobe Photoshop to do things the way that I do my backdrops. And I do just want to give a disclaimer as well that I am not a professional by any means. The backdrops that I'm doing here today, I struggle with sometimes. I'm still kind of learning my way through Photoshop as I go, learning about features as I need to learn about new features, and kind of just stumbling my way through the software side of things as best I can. So we've got the drone in the air here in Himrod. We've taken a look around, kind of inspected the area, gotten a good idea of the shots that we want to take, and now it's time to go ahead and take the shots. I've got the drone at about 150 feet, and I'm going to keep it there, and that's the most important thing, is to make sure that you keep the drone at the same height. And I'm going to start on the south side of the yard here and kind of just fly in a straight line north, taking pictures of the western hill behind the yard. And then as I get further north, I also have a few features that I want to include in my backdrops that are on the east side of the track, so I'll try to get some decent pictures of those as well, and then through the magic of Photoshop we'll be able to merge those images in with the rest of the shots we've taken here on the west side of the yard. A couple of those things that I want to see on the east side of the yard are the towers from the old salt mine here in Himrod. This closed down before Finger Lakes even took ownership of the railroad itself. It's really an iconic area. And so much so that my buddy Bill at my Finger Lakes Railway layout, he actually scratch built these in HO scale for his layout. He's got a little bit more depth in his Himrod area than I do, so I've elected to include these on the backdrop along with the Mennonite farm that he's also scratch built. Again, both those structures, they'll be in the backdrop here for me just because, like I said, I've only got 2 feet of depth here to work with just because of the way my track plan worked out. Alright, we've got the drone back here on the ground here in Himrod, so now it's time to head home, upload these photos to the computer, and show you how I put my panoramas together. Alright, so here we are, we're in Photoshop, and we'll jump right into basically how I get the initial template set up, and then we'll start to kind of import the photos that we're planning on using, and then I'll go through kind of the blending process to make them look like one cohesive photo. So from this main Photoshop screen, if you hit the new file button here, you'll be able to get to this screen where you can create your template. And I use a custom template size, and you can see the dimensions that I'm using here. The most important one that you want to focus on is the height. You want to make sure that you've got everything settings-wise in pixels for the measurement, and then the height is set at 2,932 pixels. And basically the reason for that is to make sure that when you go to print this out on a 2-foot tall backdrop or banner, that 2,932 is kind of the perfect height to make sure that the full template translates perfectly to a 2-foot tall and 8-foot wide backdrop. Now the width I have set at 30,000. That's way wider than an 8-foot backdrop. But when I am creating these backdrops, I make sure that there's overhang in each one that I do, so that when I start the next one, you know, however long it might be in between, I take a little bit of a chunk from my last backdrop and use that as the starting point for the next blend that I'm going to do with the new photos from a different location, so that when I install them on the layout, I've got a little bit of backdrop that's identical to what's already up, so that I can kind of just match lines and reference points when I'm putting it up, so that once it's up, it looks seamless. So again, 30,000, way wider than it needs to be, but the height being 2,932 is what's most important, so that you have a 2-foot tall backdrop when everything's said and done. So with that explained, we're going to hit the create button, and we'll end up at this screen here, which is just a big wide blank background. Alright, so with the backdrop created, it's time to start bringing in the images that we want to use for the backdrop. So I'm in here in the folder. I've got all of my images that I took while I was out taking reference images, and I think this one is probably the one I want to start out with, so I'm just going to right click on it, hit open with Adobe Photoshop. That'll open this up as a separate file. It opens up in a little screen like this, and then all I have to do is click the open button, and then it'll open up as a separate file here in Photoshop, and all I have to do is slide it off the main tab bar there, make sure that I have the move tool selected, click and drag it, and it'll come up with this little warning saying that the depth is different, but that's okay. We just hit the yes button. You can even hit do not show again if you need to. And then here we go. This brings in our first image as an initial layer to the document, and I can go ahead and slide it all the way down because this is going to end up being the right hand side of the image. So now it's time to start adding additional photos here, which we'll do much in the same manner we did previously. And then when we're adjusting it here, the most important thing is we want to make sure that our horizon lines match up as best we can, and then any sort of other important information in the photos line up as best they can. So you can see both these photos have kind of a dirt road down here. We want to make sure that we get those to connect as best as possible, as well as the horizon line. Everything else color grading wise and tree line wise, that can be adjusted over time. That's no problem at all, really. So you can see we actually were pretty lucky here. We don't have to do any sort of major adjustments, and we've already got pretty good alignment for the dirt road down here, and we've got pretty good alignment for the horizon line as well. So we can kind of just move right along into the next photo. Now the nice thing as we move further left or further south in the photos that we've taken is that those were all taken consecutively. This photo with the towers and the Mennonite farm was the only one that was not taken consecutively right after. So there's a little bit more work here that's going to need to be done blending wise. The rest of them kind of line up pretty well. There'll be a little bit of blend work, a little bit of adjustments, those sorts of things, but shouldn't be nearly as much work as we're going to have to do for that particular shot. So the next photo here, as you can see here, this is where things start to get a little bit challenging for us. The field unfortunately is not going in the same direction here, so we're going to have to get a little bit creative with the merge lines on these two photos, and I'll kind of go through a couple of quick tips that I've kind of picked up myself as I've learned Photoshop here. Basically, the first one I'm going to do is kind of try to get them to be the right size at least, so that they actually intersect kind of at a similar size. That's going to involve zooming this one in a little bit. Okay. All right, so that might be as close as we're really going to get there. Now we're going to go in and we're going to use the transform tool, which is under the edit, and then transform, and then we're going to use the warp tool. Now when you get into the warp tool, you can kind of click and drag anywhere on an image to kind of get it to contort to the way that you want it to be. So we're going to go back to stock here, and then we're just going to kind of do as best we can. Oop, I think we went too far, so I'm going to hit the redo button. So we're just going to do the best we can to kind of get the angle of the fields to look a little bit more reasonable. Should be able to kind of do a little bit here. You can kind of see that you can use this tool to distort and match those lines up a little bit more than just resizing an image here or there. We can also take the tree line down to where it should be. We can match that up and kind of just slowly work it in so that both are matching. And then should be able to get that a little bit more matched up. And we don't need these to be perfect because we're going to go in with another tool to perfect our blend lines. I would like to get this looking just a little bit straighter though. I mean, that field is looking very, very skewed right now. Let's see if we can do anything with that. I'll play around with this, get it to a point where I'm happy with it, and then we can go from there. So we've got all of our photos put together here in Photoshop, and now it's time to start thinking about how it is that we're going to blend all of these seam lines together. There's a couple of different ways that I'm going to need to edit this photo in order to do it. First of all, maybe the biggest thing you'll notice is that over here on the area that's got the towers for the salt mine and the Mennonite farm, the exposure is just way higher on this image than the rest of the photo for some reason. And there's a couple of different ways that you can go about adjusting that, but the easiest way really I've found is just to use the rectangular marquee tool here in Photoshop, and then just be careful to pretty much make sure that you get the exact image itself. And then I'm going to go to edit, and actually, excuse me, I'm going to go to image, adjustments, brightness, and then I'm just going to bump the brightness down till it looks like it pretty much fits in the photo. I think I like the way that looks for sure. Okay, so with that out of the way, we can really get into the seam work itself. And the big tool that I like to use for this is actually in Lightroom. So in order to get this image over to the Lightroom, we do have to export it here. And we're just going to export as. And we'll be able to export it right from this screen here. Hit the export button and save. I already have a copy of this saved. Alright, with it saved, now we can come into Lightroom. You can see I actually already have it open here, but I'll show you exactly how it is that you add photos to. This left-hand bar over here will say Add Photos, and then I can just go into Pictures and go into the file location I had it saved at and hit Review for Import. And then as long as that blue check mark is checked over here, I can hit this Add Photo button and it'll add it in. Now I already have it added in, so I'm just going to hit Cancel there, and we'll use the copy that I've already got added in here. So as far as tools are concerned here in Lightroom for blending, they're all right here. The ones I use at least are right here under the I think it's technically called the remove tool if you hover over it. Yep. And there's the remove tool itself, of course, and you can use AI generation to remove and replace with objects that it thinks would make sense in that area. And then there's also the heal tool, and what the heal tool does is actually takes reference images from other places in the photo and covers up the seams with those reference images. So we'll show you how that one works first, and we'll kind of zoom in on the tree line here because that's a good place to start with that. So if I scroll up and down, you can see the size of the tool that I'm using here gets bigger or smaller. So I'm just going to kind of highlight the seam here, and then it should find other trees. It wants to use this area here, but I can actually click and move that around to find a more treed in area if that's what I want to use, and in this case it is. So I can go ahead and do that. Now if I just come in and pop in over the top, I should be able to also do a little bit better blend job for the seam itself there. Okay, that should do it. And then I can also do the seam on the sky itself, which I'll show you how to do this way, but there's also another way that I like to take care of the sky just to make sure everything's a little more uniform as well, and I'll show you that later. But yeah, as you can see, it's just going to take that and kind of feather it in with the rest of the sky just to make everything look good. Okay, so with that all done, the sky and the tree line here, you can see we get down into an area that's a little bit more challenging to take care of. So we should still be able to use the heal tool here in order to take care of this big field. So one of the tricks I'll show you here is that you really want to be careful when you're using this heal brush, because if you take too much of an area at a time, you'll end up kind of confusing the system. It won't know where to pull your blend lines from, so that's why it had a little bit of the field in here initially. If I go ahead and delete that and just do some kind of smaller chunks at a time, it'll just take little bitty bits of the field on the other side here, and between all the blends, you know, we'll get some pretty good results. I can shrink the tool down here just to make sure that I stay out of the tree line, and you can see it wants to take a little bit of the tree line there. We don't want that, obviously. Now you'll notice that up here in the top area of this blend, it's a little browner than we would like it to be. That's because we've got the edge of the wood line in there. So if we just take the selected area itself and move it down, we get a little bit better of a result, not as brown, if you ever come across that. Now there is one other really useful tool here in Photoshop, in Lightroom, and that's the remove tool here. You can have it kind of detect objects that you're trying to remove if you select the detect objects box and then use generative AI fill. And you'll notice there's one area where I really want to use that tool in this photo, and that is right up here. As if we zoom in, you'll notice this is actually the Corning secondary that's running through the back of the shot here. The crossing was in the shot twice here, so we can use the generative AI tool to remove the crossing that's kind of cut off here, and hopefully it'll give us some good results so that you know, kind of cover it up and we can use both these shots without doing much cropping. And yeah, I mean, that would work fine there. Let's see what else it gave us for results. Anything that'll kind of, yeah, okay. So we'll roll with the first option here. When we get to the blend work, which I'll do off camera, for the rest of this shot, I'll go in and make sure that this looks a little bit cleaner and everything. But that's just a tool that you can use to remove any sort of unwanted items from the shot. Now, the rest of what I want to show you is in Photoshop, so I'm going to finish up the blend work, and I'm going to bring the shot back into Photoshop, and I'll catch up with you there. Alright, so we're back here in Photoshop with the image. You can see that for the most part I've got most of the blends now taken care of and in a place where I'm pretty happy with them. But there's still a little bit of work left to do in order to get this image looking good. Now, the big area that we'll try to focus on a little bit here, since we focused on it in Lightroom, is this area where we've got these funky trees, right? So Photoshop's got a couple of useful tools that we can use here. The lasso tool should help us a lot here, as it'll allow us to specify a specific area that we want to work with. And then there's also a generative AI tool here where I can actually give it a prompt as to what I want to have put in place here. So I can just say fall trees, and let's see what the results give us. Now, I do also just like to give a notice here that I know that the use of AI is divisive, and for the most part, I am very much firmly in the camp of, support your local artists and support everything that they do, because they've got a heck of a lot more talent than I do. This generative AI is really just a tool for me as a relative novice to be able to put together halfway decent looking images for my backdrops. It's not something that I'm looking to make any money on, and I firmly believe that the use of AI in art is kind of not a good thing. So anyway, with that spiel out of the way, let's see what the results are that it gave us. Yeah, none of those are really all that great anyway. We can go ahead and delete the layer, and then what we'll do is we'll just take a bigger lasso here and see if we get some better results. Again, I'm just going to say fall trees. Alright, so as you can see, we ultimately ended up getting some results that we can be somewhat happy with. I'm not super in love with how they turned out, but I'll play around with it more off camera and land on something that I'm happy with at least. There is one other trick that I did want to kind of go over here in Photoshop before I make my final edits off camera and then show you how to print everything, and that's to do with the sky itself. So as you can see, we do end up with some very dramatic differences in the sky color depending on the angle of the shot and the angle of the sun. So there's a couple of different things that you can do to kind of help with that. Photoshop does actually have a tool where you can hit the search button up top there and then type in sky select, and this is actually a tool that Photoshop has built in that will allow you to select just the sky color, and then we can go ahead and use the generative AI tool again and type in blend sky realistic blue, and let's see what we get. Alright, so it took a couple of tries, unfortunately, to get that prompt to give me this color of blue. For some reason it wanted to give me a really like aqua-y blue instead of a sky blue. I'm not sure exactly what was going on there, but I'm happy with the overall result now, and it does end up taking a little bit of patience, but this is the final result. I've done all the blend work that I want to do, patched all the seams in using different generative tools and the healing brush, and I'm pretty happy with how it's looking, and I think it's ready to print, so we're going to hop into that process now. Okay, so we're now on the Walgreens website. You can see hyperlinks up here, photo.walgreens.com, and I'm logged in, but you'll be able to select your closest store to pick this up at, and we're going to start working on having this printed. So I'm going to go to posters, banners, And then if you scroll down here, it will allow you to upload your own design. And you can see here, these are the different options that we've got here to work with. I typically go with the satin paper and the 2 foot by 8 foot for the larger banners, and then when I get down towards the end of a section, if I need to go with a 6 foot one, I'll do that as well. I like to work with the satin paper just because it's pretty lightweight and adheres a lot better than the vinyl does. You'll actually see, I actually already have the end of this video filmed, and they accidentally put my banner on vinyl instead of satin paper. I went ahead and just worked with it just because I hadn't used it before, and I was interested to know how things worked out. The vinyl is a lot heavier of a material, and because of that, I think I had a little bit more of a struggle getting it to adhere to the backdrop, but it is a lot more durable. The satin paper is a lot easier to crease, so if you're not careful with it, you can end up with creases, rips. You know, it's not as water resistant as the description says right here on the main page. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. The satin paper is significantly cheaper. You can see here it is saying that it's $36.99 for the satin paper, and it's $51.99 for the vinyl. Now, I will say, do not ever pay full price for these banners. Walgreens is constantly running a coupon code of some sort. As of the filming of this video on October 21st, 2024, there is a code out there right now. I believe it is fall time, all caps, and then the number 50, and that'll get you 50% off of your banners at this moment. Actually, it'll get you 50% off anything photo. So we're going to roll with the satin paper and the 2x8 just for this demonstration. I'm going to hit create now. And that'll bring us into our little workspace here. You can see I have already printed off this banner, so it's in here, but I'll take you all the way through the process just so that you can see it. I'm going to hit upload photos from my computer, select photo, and then I can go into my pictures. I can go into the backdrops, and let's see, this is the one technically we worked on tonight. All right, so we've got our photo uploaded here. All I need to do now is click the check mark here, hit add to project, and you can see it's showing up over here on the left-hand side. Here is my kind of work area that Walgreens provides, and all I need to do is click and drag it in here. You can see now that, again, there's because we made it that specific pixel height, there's no up and down movement that needs to be adjusted here. We've got it the perfect height for the banner, and now it's just a matter of positioning this where we want it for our backdrop. So we've got it all the way over here on the right hand side. You can see we've got a little bit more of the lake over here. We've got the towers, and we've got the Mennonite farm in our scene here, and it cuts off just over here at the end of the field. And this is what our 2 foot by 8 foot banner is going to look like. Now I do have about 10 total feet worth of space, so eventually I'm going to go back in and use just a little bit more of the banner over here on the left hand side to finish up the backdrop on the Himrod side, and that's why I made sure to make extra over here. But for now, we can just slide it all the way down so that we start where we want to on the right hand side. We're happy with the way everything looks as it's presented here because that's how they're going to print it. Hit the review order, and all you're going to do is go through the checkout process. That was the wrong one. And then again, here's where we can put in our coupon code if we want. I think it's fall time 50 right now. Again, there's constantly always a 50% off coupon. Yeah, and sometimes it's even 60% off, which is great. So yeah, there we go. We would be getting a 56 or a $36 banner for 18 bucks today. So great deal. The prints always turn out good. Like I mentioned, I've actually already got this printed, already picked it up, and now we're going to go get it installed. Alright, so I just got back from Walgreens with the banners, and now I'll take you through the step-by-step process on how I install them. But the first things first here, we've got a little bit of prep work to do to prep the area. The spray adhesive that we use is very aggressive, so I usually like to cover up my track. I like to get everything that's in the area out of the way, just so that we're not ruining anything that doesn't need to be ruined. Alright, so as far as materials for installation go, you really only need 2, maybe 3 things. The first is a halfway decent set of scissors in case you need to do any trimming. The second is a can of 3M or Scotch Super 77 spray-on adhesive. Depending on where you get it, it can either say Scotch or 3M with the big logo. If you get it from Home Depot, you get actually a little bit bigger of a can, and it says 3M on it, and it's kind of in a maroon can. This can came from Michael's. It's the same stuff, it just has the Scotch logo on it, and it's in a smaller can. Really just what it came down to is I was at Michael's, and it was a convenient buy to get this one rather than having to make another stop at Home Depot. But that's the third thing, and then, or excuse me, the second thing. And here's the third thing. These are just a bunch of clips, and these are going to help me hold the backdrop up in place while I adhere it. So with that said, we're going to jump right into installing this. Let's see what orientation we've got it in here. And actually, we should probably take a good look at this just to make sure that everything looks good before we start installing. Basically, the way I do this is I'm going to line up the right-hand corner over here first. I'm going to clip it in, and then I'm going to clip along the whole thing. But then I'm going to come back in with the spray adhesive and take off one clip at a time, spray that section, put the clip back up, move on to the next section, sort of deal. So stick with me here and we'll work through it. So we're going to see if it sticks well or not. I'm hoping that I get some good results from it, but like I said, if it becomes any sort of an issue at all, we'll go back to Walgreens and just have them print the correct material. I'm sure they'll be happy to do that. Unfortunately, this has actually happened to me a couple of times where I wanted paper and they printed it on vinyl, which I think the line of thinking is for them that the vinyl is a better material, and they probably don't have a good understanding of what it is that I'm using this for, and you know, and who knows, this vinyl could work well. I'm not entirely sure, but we'll see. Okay, so we've pretty much got it set here. I'm going to fine tune it a little bit here, just scooch it down. One thing I will say that is nice about this vinyl so far is that it seems like it's a little more forgiving for kind of rougher movement. Alright, so let's just take a step back here. We'll see what everything's looking like. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good here, so we'll give it a shot adhering this the vinyl and see how it goes. We're going to start down here at the right hand side. So this clips off. We're going to just very gently unroll the banner back to here. As I'm spraying this, I'm going to angle it this way just to hopefully get as minimal amount as possible on the track. I'm going to do the edge of the backdrop here, not the edge of the layout, so that hopefully we're minimizing the amount of spillover. But the rest of it, I usually like to just kind of spray the backing itself rather than the backdrop. So let's get going. Okay, so this is kind of the most critical step here. It all starts with getting it aligned properly. Now I'm just kind of working my way out towards the end of what I've sprayed on. Just kind of working out any air bubbles, trying to push it all to the left to the area where I haven't put any adhesive on just yet. That's feeling pretty good. I don't feel any air bubbles, so that's a good sign. Now we're going to take this off. And now that we've got this little chunk started, now comes the tough part because I have to take every single other clip off. All right, so now again we can kind of just work from where we left off with the adhesive. So I'm just gonna do a good additional portion here. Again, spraying on the adhesive pretty liberally, making sure we get the edges too. And then I'm just slowly gonna realign the banner as best we can. And same thing as before, we're gonna kind of just slowly press it down as we move to the left here, making sure that we don't have any air bubbles, or at least as minimal as we can. Alright, so there we have it. We got the backdrop up and installed. Overall, I'm really happy with the print quality. Happy with the way the artwork turned out for sure as well. And for this being the first time I've used the vinyl instead of the regular satin paper, I think that worked out okay as well. I'm still not sure whether or not I would prefer it over the satin paper though. The satin paper, a little more lightweight, adheres a little bit easier. This vinyl, I can say, is a heck of a lot more durable. There's a bunch of places where, as I was working that into its final position, paper may have creased, which I've dealt with before, and it's not a super big deal, but, you know, something to consider for sure. The vinyl backdrop, because it's heavier, there are a couple of little air bubbles in here that I'm not super overjoyed about, but they're not massively noticeable either, so you know, it just kind of depends on if you want something more durable and you're willing to deal with that, or if you want something that's going to be lightweight and adhere better. Really excited to keep trucking with the rest of the backdrops on the layout. Like I've said previously, I have hopefully all of the shots I should need in order to just completely blow through the rest of the backdrops. So. Alright, so that's it for this one, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate everybody tuning in and sticking around to the very end here. Let me know what you think in the comments if you've done photo backdrops before and, you know, think that there's anything that I could do to improve. Hey, I'm all ears. Like I've said throughout the video, I am by no means a professional, both on the software side or on the photography side. So, you know, always room to improve, always listening to feedback. And interested to know what you guys think. If you're interested in more content like this, be sure to subscribe. There's plenty more to come as we continue to progress on the layout itself. So I'd love to have you along for that. And don't forget to leave a thumbs up either. All that helps. So thanks, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.